Awesome. I'll just scream, right?
A little bit
We'll do our best. Maybe I'll hold this just to make sure. I know. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Still not great, but whatever. I'm really delighted to be here again this year. Let's give a round of applause to Emily, our wonderful program director. He's just put so much into this. And Christina, thank you so much again. So Christina Giglotti as well. And absolutely, just delighted at all of your partnership, the partnership of all the team members that come together to fight this awful disease and the associated diseases along with it. I really love getting together to give this message of hope. I have a ton of hope and optimism based on the talent of the team members that are working together against this awful set of diseases that affect cognition and aging. And as we're learning more and more, Alzheimer's is such a diverse set of pathologies that develops in the brain. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it. We're learning more every single day. I'm going to give you something that probably goes over all of our heads, but it's still going to give you I'm going to go through it just because it's at the very earliest stages and a really exciting new potential approach to start interrogating. And I think UC San Diego has particular expertise in working on that line of inquiry. So I'm just so delighted and so honored to be leading an incredible program that I think is recognized across the world as a major leader in this fight against Alzheimer's disease. In fact, we just had our external advisory board meeting where we invited leading Alzheimer's researchers from across the country to come kind of give us critiques. We really wanted to have, we want to make sure our approach is bulletproof. So we invite them to come and just really be harsh critics of anything that we're doing so that we can make sure that we're just staying as much on the forefront as possible. And they came away just saying, this is an amazing and enviable program. We wish we had it at our centers. And these were people from, from UCSF, from Wisconsin, from Harvard, from Johns Hopkins. This is a really esteemed group, and they just said, you got an incredible program here. So we should all be proud as San Diegans for being such a center here, and thank you for your partnership. So I'm going to give you a little bit of just our usual center overview for anybody that's not really been familiar with the center, give some highlights, talk about some of the really exciting additions we have in not only staff, but also faculty, and then that little snippet on science, and then give you an update on our return of results, which everybody's quite excited about. We're excited about it too. It's been a long journey to finally be able to say, if you participate in our studies, in our imaging studies, in the assessment of your brain proteins that are going on, we will now return those results to you. And so we really appreciate that effort. That's been a nationwide effort to say, really, we shouldn't be so paternalistic about this. We were always worried about giving that information. What are people going to, especially when maybe there wasn't an actionable event, for your physician to act on. But I think the field said, you know what? We're all adults. Let's give them enough information as possible. And that's what we're going to be doing going forward. Okay. Yeah, good. This slide you saw but didn't see because it's so small, but it really is just it's really a demonstration of the huge team that we've assembled of really outstanding scientists and faculty, all working together across many different components of the center. So what you're seeing today is really our outreach, recruitment, and engagement cores effort. And thank you so much for the team members doing that. That is led by Gary Peavy and Sarah Banks in that lower left corner. That they do a huge amount of effort. They're running or coordinating the quality of life programs that Jane, Janelle, and Joyce do. And so that's just one component of our center. Of course, we have the clinical core that helps characterize each of the individuals, a data and biostatistics core that takes all of this data and makes it usable for all of our other scientists and collaborators, a neuropathology core. If you've been in agreement with getting an autopsy, we need a core that's going to be able to really apply the most recent and up-to-date state-of-the-art approaches to characterize the different proteins that are in the brain of our patients that pass away. An assessment innovation core, which allows us to tailor our approaches to include diverse populations. So we're here in San Diego. Of course, we're in La Jolla, not as very diverse, but in San Diego, very, very diverse population. And we need to be able to make sure that we are culturally sensitive, bilingual, able to really apply the same types of advanced assessments that they would do at Mayo Clinic in Rochester to Chula Vista, San Diego, right? So that's what we're trying to work on. Chula Vista in California area. So, and then I've told you a lot. I'm very excited about human cell models. This is a human disease. And so, you know, certainly mice and other models are important, but I really feel like it needs to be studied in humans. And that's why we absolutely value your partnership. But I've told you about this disease in a dish model where we take a little skin biopsy from you and we can turn those cells into nerve cells, neurons, and really look at the processes, the molecular processes that are going on in this disease based on an individual variability of genotype. And now really with new approaches, looking even at the aging impacts, because we can look at, say, a very aged cell, skin cell, and turn it into an aged neuron, or versus a younger cell. And then hopefully, if you're willing, to do a second biopsy later, maybe some years down the line, and actually see what changed in those years in the intervening time. So that's a very exciting level of science, and that's led by Jerome Mertens, and it's a great close collaboration with the Salk Institute. Our biomarker core that Doug Galasco leads with Paula Desplatz allows us to really characterize individuals not only from their biofluids, the cerebrospinal fluid that you generously allow us to collect from the lower spinal column. Hopefully you guys can share experiences, because I think most people, when they leave the room, they say that wasn't that bad, right? Okay, hopefully. Now, if it was bad, okay, we'll do better. But if it wasn't, please share your experience with others. Okay, so, and then the research education component, really key component of this center to really provide training to the next generation of scientists and clinicians so that this work can go on for generations. But hopefully won't need to, because we'll solve the disease. So I think some of the highlights, the fact that we've co-localized with a memory clinic that we established right there in the East Campus office building, where you go with parking right in front, being able to allow us to look at specific targeted populations, like patients that have started the monoclonal antibody therapies. We really want to learn more about the changes that happen when a person is placed on these new therapies, so that we can inform the world and understand how to make it better. Okay. And then also we're interested in recruiting adults with Down syndrome. I think many of you know or have heard in the past that a patient with Down syndrome has 3 copies of the chromosome 21, which has the amyloid precursor protein on it. So they're making 150% of what would be a typical amyloid level. So all patients with Down syndrome, if they live long enough, will have Alzheimer's pathology in their brain. So it's a very important model, a very important population to study and lend our expertise to. Mild cognitive impairment, the very earliest stages of cognitive impairment, always a very sought after cohort to apply our studies to. And then frontotemporal dementia and the other illnesses that are related, like dementia with Lewy bodies. We have a South Bay satellite. We have partners at the Neuron Clinic in Chula Vista, and we have the South Bay Latino Research Center. And then, of course, these cores that I just talked to you about. So just a few faces here. The OR core is not here in this one, but because you see them more frequently. But here's the rest, you know, just some of the leaders I wanted to show you their friendly faces. This I've shown in the past is kind of our overarching approach, where we use the engagement core to engage a diverse population, bring them into the center, and apply our best practices to fully characterize them and make our valuable participants, you guys, available to the scientific community so that we can move this science forward. I think it's really exciting that UC San Diego is growing alongside us. This is the, well, just the growth that's happening. I think you know that the East Campus Medical Center is out by San Diego State, kind of on the 8 highway. That's a new addition to our ecosystem. We also made new agreements with Palomar Health and in Escondido and Poway. I think it's going to broaden our reach of our center, allow us to reach even more diverse population, including the South Bay, but also in the Escondido region. So I wanted to just, as a very brief overview, because I won't have enough time to go through everything, some of the collaborative programs that we've had. Some of you may have been a part of the Women, Inflammation, and Tau study, looking at Alzheimer's pathology and clinical profiles in Black women, the BWIT study, that's a component of the Women, Inflammation, and Tau study. The study of Latinos, investigation of cognitive aging, that Hector Gonzalez runs. And then, of course, our Dan and Phyllis Epstein Family Initiative and a new Alzheimer's vaccine initiative that we're just trying to get off the ground. Not quite ready for enrollment, but really some really exciting partnerships with our immune science colleagues that have never been involved in Alzheimer's disease. So I think it's going to be really exciting to have their cross-fertilization of knowledge into our fight against Alzheimer's disease. And then, of course, a huge number of national programs that Emily referred to, the Diverse Vascular Cognitive Impairment Disease, the INDEED study, the ADNI, the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative that's been going now for over 20 years and just still going strong. We are a minority hub for that as well as a central site, and we appreciate your participation in that. A new imaging initiative called Clarity, where we really will be reaching out and hoping that you'll want to do a thing called triple imaging, meaning an MRI, a PET scan for amyloid, and a PET scan for tau. That's almost full characterization of the components of brain aging that are going on, and we will return those results to you, as I'll talk about in a second. So, of course, in my mind, there's a jumble of things that I got to deal with in a center like this. We have the NIH turmoil that hopefully is calming down a little bit. We have a training grant we're putting in. We're recruiting people. We're participating in national initiatives. We're starting up new studies. We're trying to target new cohorts. We're trying to figure out how to return results. We're trying to engage the South Bay in the midst of a very challenging time for the South Bay with, immigration fear, enforcement fear, scanner availability, launching a new data system. But in the end, I think we've really navigated these challenging times well. And as Emily said, our funding does not seem to be at threat. I think they've recognized that this is a fight that's too important to be partisan about. And we bring together the efforts to continue to fight it and fund it. New exciting partners. Andrea Fuentes came to us from Stanford. She may be participating in some of the neurologist visits. She's actually trained as a movement disorders physician, fully bilingual and very passionate about neurodegenerative illness. And so you'll probably see her face. You might have already seen Johannes Schlaketsky, the second individual down there, MD, PhD, I believe maybe he's MD, but he does a lot of science, and he's just been an incredible partner on not only on the clinical side, but on the research side. We're about ready to bring on board, probably in just weeks, of a name that you may have known from prior. Our prior social worker, Ivana Arias, went off to PA school to become a physician's assistant. And we said, please, once you get that training, come back and join us again and be a part of our center now as a clinician. And she agreed to that, and we're so delighted. She's now got a really tight connection to our center and is going to be able to provide a lot of really valuable components, including very, very sensitive skin biopsies. And an understanding of how to manage patients with cognitive impairment. We've brought on new informatics and imaging staff people, and we are looking for at UCSD a process for a movement disorders director. This individual, though, is particularly exciting. I mean, all those are exciting, but this guy is a national leader named Dirk Keene, who we've been working on for about 2 years to get him down here. He was at University of Washington as a neuropathologist and really renowned in the field of Alzheimer's disease. And he just accepted at UCSD to be the chair of pathology. And so we're going to have a great new partner in Dirk Keene. So a lot of great, exciting new times. Yep. Yeah. I think our team's clapping. We see him almost as the Messiah. Okay. A lot of things we can do in pathology. And again, so, we're going to really push the field forward in this very important component. Oh, great. 10 minutes. I got a lot of time. All right. I thought I was blabbing on, but I am. But I want to talk to you about something, and some of it will go over your head. A lot of it goes over my head. But some of the stuff that's happening at UCSD in the genetic space, I think I've talked to you in the past about the special environment that we have in the San Diego biotech environment, Illumina, Avexis, Ionis, all these companies that are really world leaders in pushing genetic technologies forward. And UC San Diego is pushing it even farther through academic application of the power of genetics. So the Center for Epigenomics is one step above the genome, where you actually look at how are the modifications of the genome influencing protein production and potentially disease. So we have a center that's here that now we believe is going to be a very powerful partner in investigating some of the components of Alzheimer's disease. And one of the components that has been brought them to our doorstep is that they're seeing really interesting things happen in aging. And as I've mentioned in the past, aging is a challenging concept to study in the scientific environment, because usually we do these 5-year grants and you spend 2 years getting things ready and you do a couple of science investigations, and then by the end you're trying to report out and already trying to get a new grant. Okay, so little 5-year chunks is not an easy way to study aging. But with populations like you that have come to our center and been with us for years and years, we have samples across time, and we can look at those longitudinal samples and start to really understand the process of aging. And here's one component that I think is particularly exciting. When you look at some of these signals in patients' brain tissue, you can see that one of the cell types called a microglia, not a neuron, not an astrocyte, not an oligodendroglia, it's a inflammatory cell that resides in your brain and fights infections. Okay, that's something that sits in your brain and is monitoring for any insult that it wants to attack. When you look at aging and microglia, and you do this approach to look at the different cell types, you don't see, you see some clusters that look like there are some changes going on, but if you look deeper with a new technique, you can look at another signal onto these cell types and say, there's something that happens right at about age 50 where this blue cell type starts to take over. And so they don't even know what these really are, but they just call them microglia 1, type 1, and microglia type 2. And somehow type 2 starts to take over your brain. And so let's investigate that a little bit. Well, at that age, there's a question. Maybe these microglia that are sitting in your brain start to, with aging, become less effective and maybe even die. And the place you can replace them from may be the blood. So monocytes from the blood, your usual infection fighting cell, will come into the brain and actually replace the microglia. This is a hypothesis, not yet fully tested, but it's something we're working on. But what happens with that? And here's evidence that it might be something from the peripheral blood that's replacing these microglia. Microglia 1, sitting from birth, they die off. Microglia 2, generated from the peripheral blood. Well, microglia 2 may not be the best thing for your brain. You probably would prefer to have those young microglia in your brain, because it turns out when you look at all the other signals that are component to it, it looks quite inflammatory, meaning much more aggressive in fighting things. And so you've all heard of, maybe you've heard of the term inflammaging. One of the things we fight in aging is an overactivation of your inflammatory system. And this might be just another story. And it turns out when you look at Alzheimer's brains, it's even more enriched. Now, we'll have a lot of questions to go after on that, but there's a signal there that maybe this has a component of the disease. I just wanted to whet your appetite. I think in years we'll be able to tell you, oh, remember that story I told you? Here's a new finding on it. And I think it's just, that's the fun part of being in this world. And then just to talk about the rest, this environment at UC San Diego will just blow your mind as you learn more and more about it. We did a call for proposals saying we're going to give $50,000 for anybody to do a pilot study that fits with our goals to fight this disease. And really, really exciting science came out to propose for that pilot fund. And the second thing that happens is if they succeed in that first year, we give them another $50,000. So the environment came together, and you may not understand the different types of these are pretty complex titles, test A beta 42 induced gamma secretase inhibition and endolysosomal network disruption in human induced pluripotent stem cell derived neurons. Well, that may be gobbledygook, but it's super exciting, actually. So we looked at these and we sent them out to external review across the nation, and we were expecting to fund 2. Okay. And I'll just talk about that. So, and one of the things that I think when we're looking across this, we found super exciting new science happening. So here's a quote that I like. Progress in science depends on new techniques, new discoveries, and new ideas, probably in that order. Meaning, you only get the new ideas once you're making completely new discoveries and coming up with new approaches. And so that led us, not just led us, but I think it might have influenced that we really wanted to bring in some really exciting new technologies to the fight. And one of those is called magnetoencephalography, and applying and looking at signal changes with aging in the electrical signals of the brain with really high resolution. This is a machine sitting over in engineering, and we want to apply it toward the fight against aging and Alzheimer's disease. And then the second one is about a $20 million investment in a cryo-electron microscopy tool that will be able to, I know these are weird terms, but this is a way to look at proteins and their structure. And we're finally going to have that amazing technology applied to our disease of interest. So 2 really exciting findings: the Cryo-EM Center with a very established, amazing investigator, Elizabeth Chong Wang from the MEG Center, won another of the awards. But when we looked at all the reviews, we said, oh my gosh, we can't say no to these others though. So we dug in, and thankfully, Betsy Collins, our great partner, and other fantastic philanthropic partners are allowing us to apply our funding to fund 3 additional studies. So this year, we're going to fund 5. We've never done that in the past ever. But there's so much science that's going to go forward. So before I get to return of role, just to tell you, we have amazing local strengths and directions. We have new tools to examine neuroinflammation and non-neuronal contributions to this disease. We do feel like aging impacts mitochondrial function. We're looking at new human cell models, new precise tools, looking at linkages to lipids. We're going to look at high-resolution assessment of neuron and support cell function in health, aging, and disease, and we're building our expanded user base of scientists that we're bringing to the fight. So let me give you a return of results update. So basically, briefly, we're going to return your amyloid, tau, and neurodegeneration status back to you based on proteins. Okay, so we will, as we get imaging on you, new imaging and new lumbar puncture and new MRI, we will be able to return that data back to you. The details are in this, and I think we can probably, we're still actually, it's pretty much final, but the timeline of it, you've always gotten your neuropsychological testing back. That comes within 8 to 12 weeks, and we do that through a feedback letter. Our amyloid imaging, we're going to be collecting typically out at Sorrento Valley at the Tau Proton Center, as well as our tau imaging. We now have a process by which when that imaging comes back and we aggregate it and get it analyzed, it takes some time. At the next visit that you have, it will probably be at your next annual visit, we're going to sit down with you with a neurologist or Ivan Arias and just talk about the results and what it means. And that will be an ability to basically give that feedback and information. This is about more than $10,000 value, basically, because if you did this out in the practice, it'd be $5,000 per study. That's the lowest rate you'd get. So about $10,000 worth of value. And the CSF amyloid measure from lumbar puncture, also extraordinarily valuable. We'd also give that back at the next visit. MRI scans, what we hope to do is get you a disc at the end of your study. Now, some of you already get that, but we do want to try to just say, hey, at the end of your imaging study, hey, can you burn me a disc? If you're getting any pushback on that, oh, we can't have a burn a disc, or we don't do it, just let us know, and we'll work on getting you the raw images that you can share with your healthcare provider. And if we see something really abnormal that jumps out at us, we're going to immediately get in touch with you and just say, hey, there's something that you should know about and might be actionable. Okay. So, and then clinical evaluation and certainly autopsy we give to the family results, which is what we do. Okay, so we do need a required new signing of your consent, so be on the lookout for that. At your next visit, you're probably going to be presented with a new consent form to sign. We do need just a couple of points here that are listed here. Okay, so that's really my point, other than most importantly, thank you, thank you, thank you. We could not do this without your participation. You are the fuel to this science that we're so excited about, and we appreciate all of your incredible engagement, and thank you for being here today. Thank you to our teams. Please stay involved. Think about joining our monthly e-newsletter and continue to join research studies as you are possible. So thank you again.